Imagine traveling back to the year 100 CE. You visit Christian communities in Rome, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. You expect identical beliefs, identical practices, identical scriptures. Here's what you'd find instead: communities that barely recognize each other as part of the same movement. Some believed Jesus was fully divine. Others insisted he was fully human. There was no single, original Christianity. There were Christianities. Christianity emerged from Judaism in multiple locations simultaneously: Jerusalem, Antioch, Alexandria, Rome, Ephesus, Corinth, each developed independently. Geographic separation meant independent theological development. These communities couldn't text each other. Letters took weeks. Travelers brought conflicting reports. Each community answered fundamental questions differently. Who was Jesus? Should followers keep Jewish law? Can women lead? The diversity wasn't corruption of an original unity. The diversity was original. Let's examine 5 fault lines that divided these communities. First, Christology, beliefs about who Jesus was. Docetists claimed Jesus only appeared human. His body was an illusion. Ebionites insisted Jesus was a human prophet adopted by God at baptism. Proto-Orthodox communities said both divine and human. Second, Jewish identity. Were Christians Jews? Should they follow Torah? Matthew's community saw themselves as true Israel. Paul's Gentile communities rejected Torah observance. Third, women's roles. Some communities included women as prophets, teachers, and leaders. Others forbade women from speaking in assembly. Fourth, social hierarchy. Different communities held different views on slavery and household structure. Some texts reinforced Roman social order. Others subverted it. Fifth, empire. How should Christians relate to Roman power? Accommodation or resistance? Revelation depicts Rome as Babylon, the great whore. Other texts counsel submission to governing authorities. These weren't minor disagreements. These were fundamental, incompatible visions of what following Jesus meant. So, where did the unified story come from? The texts that became the New Testament were themselves attempts to create coherence. Paul's letters constantly addressed disputes and competing teachers. His opponents weren't outsiders. They were other Christians with different understandings. The Gospels present different portraits of Jesus for different communities. Mark's suffering servant, Matthew's new Moses, John's divine word. Unity was a goal, not a starting point. And the 27-book New Testament wasn't assembled immediately. Paul wrote his letters around 50-60 CE. The Gospels appeared between 70 and 100 CE. But the canon, the official list of accepted scriptures, took centuries to settle. Marcion proposed the first known canon around 140 CE. The Muratorian fragment from around 180 CE lists some books, but not others. Athanasius's Easter letter in 367 CE first lists our current 27 books. The councils of Hippo and Carthage in the 390s ratified this list. That's over 300 years of debate. Many other texts circulated with authority: Gospel of Thomas, Shepherd of Hermas, Acts of Thecla. Consider the Gospel of Judas, discovered in the 1970s, published in 2006. This text presents Judas not as villain, but as the only disciple who truly understood Jesus. Jesus laughs at the other disciples' ignorance. He reveals secret knowledge to Judas alone. The betrayal becomes an act of obedience. This text existed. Communities read it. Some considered it authoritative. The Gospel of Judas demonstrates that many texts competed for authority. The canon we know represents the winner's selection. Traditional approaches assume unity and explain away differences. Historical approaches reverse this. They pull apart apparent unity to reveal original diversity. Picture 2 models. The traditional view, a single trunk that later splits into branches. Unity first, then fragmentation. The historical view. Multiple roots that gradually converge into a trunk. Diversity first, then consolidation. This isn't about attacking faith. Many scholars are themselves believers. Historical study asks different questions. Not, is this true? But, how did this develop? Some object. But Paul unified the early church. Paul's letters reveal the opposite. He's constantly arguing against competing teachers. In Galatians, he opposes those requiring circumcision. In Corinthians, he battles factions claiming different leaders. In Philippians, he warns against dogs who demand Torah observance. Paul didn't create unity. He fought for his version of Christianity against other versions. His letters survive because his communities preserved them. His opponents' letters didn't survive. We hear one side of ancient arguments. The diversity Paul fought against was real. Read the New Testament differently now. When you read the Gospels, notice how each presents Jesus distinctly. When you read Paul, identify who he's arguing against. Ask, what community produced this text? What were they trying to accomplish? Contemporary debates often appeal to original Christianity. Historical awareness reveals these appeals are more complicated than they appear. Diversity existed from the beginning. The question isn't, what did early Christians believe? The question is, what did which early Christians believe? And that question opens a richer, more complex, more historically honest picture of how one of the world's major religions began. Not a pure stream that became polluted, a confluence of streams that became a river.